Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of The Cycle. I am your host, Mike Maher, and I am joined by Kelly Kirby and Ryan Wormeli, who just refuses to leave the show, even though we kicked him off, and he said he was going to go work on football. And so there's a reason he's back, and we're going to get into that pretty much right away here. There's been a situation in a league that we're in together, and basically we need you, the audience, and we need Kelly to help us decide if I'm going to quit this league this offseason. And I know that most of the time, listeners don't really care about the leagues that, the hosts are in. And so we're not going to spend a ton of time on it, just talking about our leagues. But we did think this situation was interesting enough, and it is pretty similar to some things that are brought up on our Discord from time to time, or in the at our mailbag email address, where people get into some situations, whether it's about trades and whether things should be voided, or about situations in their league and whether they should stay in them or leave or try to track someone down and find their money. And so we're going to bring Worm on and discuss what happened in our league. And so, Kelly, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great because I'm not in this league. But let's not act like this is the first time I've had to watch the two of you fight about it. So, I'm glad we're doing it live now.
Yeah, Kelly's been privy to our Slack DMs previewing this discussion.
I also shared a lot of the details on Twitter, and I got to say, a lot of the audience agreed with me.
Let me just say this right off the bat. You shared a lot of details on Twitter. You did not share all of them. You skipped some pretty key pieces of context that I'm not surprised the vote went the way it did, because
85%.
there was stuff missing in there. So
all right. Well,
I'm excited to be able to clear the air on that.
Well, let's not keep everyone waiting. Do you want me to dive in and tell everyone what happened in this corrupt league that you invited me to? Or
not corrupt. We're not going to use that word. Kelly, I want your opinion. Would it be better for Maher, who is the perceived aggrieved party, to give his stance first and then me to rebut it? Or would it be better for me to give some of the history and context of the league and explain our perspective and then toss to Maher? What do you think would make more sense here?
What I think is going to make sense is I'm going to give Maher 2.5 minutes to give his approach, and then I'll just interrupt him, and then you can explain why he's wrong, because obviously Maher's wrong. So
I'm glad we're establishing that early.
Objection. Sustained.
By the way, I know you're to your point about people not really caring so much about people's. Consider this like a fantasy court scenario, right? Like shows you that all the time. This is I think it's one-sided, but I think it's an interesting conversation, and it's not related to the strength of a specific player. It's kind of that rules and commissioner type stuff that I think people will have an opinion on. So I'm hoping everybody in the comments will share their opinion and respectfully tell you that you are being crazy.
Oh, I hope so too. So I'll go
also the last thing I'll say too is I was literally messaging you, Maher, the day before this all went down, about how one thing that this show has been missing in the 2 years you and I have done it is we agree a little too much. Like, there are players that you might have ranked more highly than me or something. Like, it's not like we literally have the exact same opinion on everything, but by and large we're in the same direction on most stuff, and we tend to largely be pretty cordial and agree, and there's not a lot of enthusiastic, organic, real debate. And literally less than 24 hours later this happened, and I was like, I very genuinely think you're being crazy here, and we enthusiastically disagree. So it's almost like good timing that this happened, and I figured this would be a good transition for me off the show here moving forward. But for this season, I should clarify, we're not canceling the show over this. But go ahead and we'll give your opinion here.
All right, I'll break it down real quick. I don't have to spend a full 2.5 minutes on it. I'll give everyone the background. So this past offseason, Worm invited me to this long-running league that he's been a part of. It's a hybrid keeper/dynasty points league. We've mentioned it a bunch on the show as a point of reference. And so I took over probably the worst orphan team I've ever seen in my life in any sport. And between some good drafting and a lot of good luck, thank you, Kyle Raleigh, I actually took them from worst to in the playoff hunt. And so it's been a lot of fun trying to compete in this league with a bunch of members who know each other. That's key to this story. And so what happened recently is the Emmanuel Clase suspension happened. And it happened on a Monday, which is the worst timing for a weekly lineup league. And I'm in other leagues where there's an emergency clause where something like this happens, and maybe once a year you're able to message the commissioner and say, hey, I have an emergency. Can you swap out this player for me? And it's no problem. I asked for that in this league, and they said, no, that's not a thing. You just have to take the empty lineup spot. And because it's a hybrid keeper dynasty, I actually didn't have a backup reliever because I'm using a lot of those spots for, prospects or places to, pitchers, players to fill in other spots. So I didn't have another reliever. So I'm like, all right, that's a bummer. But, I guess I'm just going to have to take the 0 in my lineup spot this week. And that's important for two reasons. One, it's weekly head-to-head points league. But you have two matchups every week. You have a matchup with one other opponent, and then you have a matchup against the median. The median score for the league. So you could potentially go 2-0, 1-1, or 0-2, depending on how things go. And so I'm like, all right, that's a bummer, but maybe I can at least salvage a 1-1 out of this week, and hope my team does well. So then the week is going, and it's pretty close. I'm up on the median. It's like back and forth with my opponent, but my opponent had an illegal lineup. And so he was set to get a 0 for the week. And we knew this on Monday. And it wasn't until, I think, Friday night where the same commissioner who told me no about the Emmanuel Class A emergency provision, went in and personally fixed my opponent's illegal lineup from, a lineup that was set to get a 0, fixed his lineup. And then I ended up losing both of my matchups. I lost my head-to-head matchup with my opponent. He ended up having a great week with his, a lineup that was, magically fixed on Friday. Who knows which players were handpicked? Probably players who were already doing great that week were already handpicked to put in his lineup. And I also lost to the median by a few points because I had a blank spot in my lineup where if I had a reliever, I probably would have at least gone 1-1. And so I am justifiably pretty outraged by this. And again, I'm the newcomer to the league. And it feels very suspicious that the bubble playoff team, who's the newcomer, it feels like being punished so that one of the commissioner's buddies can make the playoffs. I rest my case.
Cool. That only took 3 minutes and 12 seconds. All right. Worm, what you got?
Okay, so very key pieces of information are missing from Maher's story. Number one.
It's not your turn.
Objection.
Yeah. The reason that you were not able to pick up an emergency replacement on Monday is because of the keeper and salary cap, format of the league, where if you had a backup, like on your roster, it would have been. By the way, I'm not the commissioner, but I'm just saying we to represent the league. But it would have been moved in.
The corrupt.
You didn't have a backup. The only scenario in which this is going to burden you is if it happens Monday, because we only do nightly waivers, and you don't have a backup. So it was a very specific set of circumstances that led to that. And you kind of accepted that, hey, it sucks. We don't have this rule in place. We have actually talked about adding that rule in the offseason, and there is a lot of support for it. It just hasn't happened yet because we haven't found kind of a perfect method. But it's just really unfortunate. I don't see a difference between a suspension versus an injury. Obviously, one is way more unique of a scenario, but effectively it's the same thing. You are all of a sudden, without warning, not having this player for a week in a weekly format. It sucks, but everybody in this league has been burned by it. Okay, this isn't just like a you thing. Everybody has had to take a 0 because a pitcher got scratched and their team didn't play till Tuesday or whatever. So that was just quickly on that first part. The illegal lineup, there was no putting in of specific players. There was no it wasn't that his lineup was incomplete and it was made full by the commissioner. The only fix that was made was
for all we know. I don't know.
No, we do know. We do know. There was So there was this huge issue a couple weeks ago in the league that Maher and I talked about on the show with this veto, and this guy basically lost his mind and was so angry about a decision that was made that the entire league, including Maher, agreed with, that he was messing with his roster and everything and basically trying to torpedo this thing. So for 1 week only, our commissioner added a third IL spot. We usually only have 2. He added a third IL spot to make this guy's lineup okay, not let him ruin the league. He had quit the league already, but we got a new manager to replace him. It was a 1 week only third IL spot. There were 600 messages about this in our chat because there was a lot of back and forth with this huge fight. This guy, again, really losing his marbles and kind of rage quitting. And one of the managers in the league who is not he's not in the playoff hunt at all. He's very, very having a bad season. Was in the middle of a big move and was I can't read through all these messages. I'm not even the playoffs. I'm not looking at this. But he saw, there's a third IL spot. Let me throw a guy in there. Gets into the next week, didn't realize it. The game started and goes, oh, I didn't realize this was a 1 week thing. I need to get rid of one of these IL guys to make this lineup legal. There was no changing of any players in the lineup. There was no like, oh, he only started 3 outfielders instead of 4. Let's fix that. It was literally just to make it legal, dropping one of the 3 IL guys that was only in there for 1 week and this manager wasn't aware of.
On Friday.
The other key piece of context. I agree. It should have happened earlier in the week. I actually don't disagree with that. I was kind of annoyed that it took as long as it did. But the other key piece of information is this league has been going on for like 6 or 7 years. Every single illegal lineup in the history of this league has been fixed. We have a very established, clear precedent of
objection irrelevant.
We are not going to let teams get free wins because of an illegal lineup. That's not to say lineups have been optimized. There have been people who have started only 3 outfielders instead of 4, and you just take the 0, and that's your own stupidity, and it's fine. It's very specifically to get a 0 with something that is like a technical glitch, right? Like he didn't start too many players. He accidentally had that 3rd IL spot because he wasn't aware it was this 1 week increase to fix his previous issue. It was an honest mistake, and that has been fixed not just in previous seasons, but earlier this season. That has happened with an illegal lineup that was like I think the one earlier this year was like some minors guy was no longer minors eligible. Guy didn't realize it. Okay, we'll fix it. It has happened every time. Black and white. It has nothing to do with who is new to the league, who has been in the league before. It has always been fixed. It is an established precedent of the league. So the two things coming together, I get why they are like, frustrating, and it wasn't your ideal scenario, Maher, but we clearly do not have a rule allowing for emergency pickups. We might add it, and I think you should push to add it in the offseason because I would support it, but we don't currently have that rule, so we can't just like make an exception for you. And the illegal lineup would have been fixed regardless of who it was, regardless of who he was facing. It didn't benefit the guy whose lineup was fixed because he's not even in the playoff hunt. It was literally just, hey, this isn't fair
just to help the guy behind me in the playoff.
Well, not to help him, but to not punish him. It's not his fault that the guy did an illegal line. If you were on the outside looking in, we would have done the same thing to not punish you for some other but it's not debatable. So what's frustrating to me about this whole thing is that there's no seemingly no willingness to concede that this was not done to personally attack you.
What if
right?
if I had just put Emmanuel Clase in the IL and made my lineup illegal? But if you had fixed it for me and give me a slot back, added a player,
you couldn't have put him in the IL. Fantrax wouldn't have let you. It was because the rule changed from week to week that it became IL. Like, you literally wouldn't have had that option. The number of IL slots literally changed overnight, which is why it was set up that way, but went to illegal. It's honestly maybe a flaw of Fantrax's design that it allowed that to happen. And I really like Fantrax, but maybe that's something that they shouldn't even have allowed to happen. But you couldn't have even done that if you'd wanted to. And by the way, if you had
me personally or anyone in the league or just me,
anybody. And by the way, Maher, if you had done that, yes, he would have fixed it from being illegal. He would have put Clase back in, and you still would have gotten a 0 from him. So even though you couldn't have done that, now that I'm thinking through your question, yes, if you had an illegal lineup, he would have fixed it. Fixing doesn't mean optimizing it for the highest possible score and picking up players for you. It just means making it so that you're not getting a 0. And that's all that happened. And the last thing I'll say before letting you kind of jump back in is that I am telling you this is not corrupt. Like, corruption is a really strong word to throw out. And I think that's worth noting.
I agree.
Like having it be a decision that you didn't like and that you would like to see the rule changed or any of those things is totally valid, but like corruption is like really strong. Our commissioner is not perfect. He is sometimes a word that I won't say because this is a family program, and he's one of my close friends, but he's not perfect as a commissioner. He is not biased or corrupt. He's a commissioner of like 15 different leagues, and he puts a lot of time and effort into trying to be as fair as possible. Like, you can disagree with the decision, but there is no corruption here. And the other thing that I know I said that was the last thing. The other thing I'll say is you are overestimating how well everybody in this league knows each other. It's a lot of people that just like, oh, hey, a friend of a friend wanted to join. This is not some like group of friends that you're the outsider looking in. There's like 3 or 4 people in the league that know each other. Everybody else was just kind of picked up over the years. So that's what I have to say about that.
All right. I have one more piece of evidence. Potentially a smoking gun, I would say. Let me direct your attention to March 27th at 11:41 a.m.
Okay.
When the commissioner of this league sent a draft recap and season predictions.
Okay.
And let's see what he wrote about my team. Now, maybe you're a conspiracy theorist, maybe not, but let's see how you take this message that he wrote about my team. Our newest member of the league took over a team that basically gave up 3 years ago, and yet that former owner still yelled at me for kicking him out of the league, but that's a story for another day. I loved how Mike approached the draft, basically stockpiling certain positions and young players to wheel and deal later in the season when injuries and desperation strikes for the playoff contenders. Here we go. I see a bright future for the Wastelanders, but I'd be shocked if their fortunes can be flipped in 2025. Now, is this a commissioner trying to make that prediction come true and keep me out of the playoffs as he predicted? Because it looks like we have evidence from several months ago where this is exactly what he wanted to happen, and he's now helping it happen.
No, not what he wanted to happen, what he predicted to happen.
Boys. Maher, you're the only person that would do that. You're the only person who would write that message and hang on to it and then try to flip it. So you were right 6 months ago. You're it. You're the only human being, I believe, entirely on the planet. So I just want to weigh in with that.
I have the receipt from.
I know
Worm's
Worm's got a
Schmobert Schmode.
I know Worm's got a jet. So I see both sides of this pretty well, I think, where it can look like, why is this one and this is the other? I've had commissioners do oddball things. But I also think that, you tend to see attacks where there are none. And I can list the other flaws of you. And also, Worm, it's kind of, and it's such a weird experience whenever there's those one-offs as somebody that commissions a bunch of leagues. It's like, well, yeah, you just kind of have to make the best decision that you can. But above all else, why are you playing in weekly points leagues? They suck. That is my overall judgment on this case.
It's funny. Maher has specifically told me he really likes the format of this league. It's not a true dynasty. It's a pretty deep keeper league though, with prospects involved. So it's a pseudo dynasty league. It's one of my favorite leagues that I play in, honestly, because I really enjoy the format too. Also, Maher is still currently in the playoffs, right. So it's not like he's been kicked out. He might not make the playoffs. This is the last week of the regular season, but he is still currently in and controls his own destiny here. But yeah, I get the initial like, whoa, what's going on here? But then once that was answered, I would think there would be maybe less of a crash out here from Maher. And I don't think you should quit the league. I think it's a fun league. You want to embrace being the villain, fine, but I don't think you are the villain. Most people that I've talked to are really impressed with the turnaround you've made with the league and would be happy to see you in the playoffs. Also, the teams behind you sold off at the deadline, so it's not like there's some like push to get them in the playoffs. They don't really care about making the playoffs anyway. So, yeah, that's where I stand. I think it's crazy to call this corruption, and I think the commenters like Kelly will agree with me.
I disagree. I think it's hard to stay in a league when you don't respect or trust the commissioner anymore, and you see corruption. So
but why don't you trust me when I tell you, hey, this isn't corruption?
You're not the one with the power.
But I know the commish very well, and I'm telling you, this is not a corrupt decision. What I'm really confused by, and I do have to hop after this, but what I'm really confused by is why you think the previous history of the league is irrelevant.
Because I wasn't in it then. How do I know?
But you were in it earlier this year when there was a change made.
I don't remember
to fix an illegal lineup.
I don't remember.
So you have been in it when this has happened. It's been established precedent in your time here. I guess I think that's relevant.
That.
Okay. Well. Anyways, it's not corruption. We love having you in the league. You've impressed everybody with turning around the worst roster I've ever seen.
You're trying to butter me up to keep me in the league.
No,
don't suck up to him.
It's a genuine thought. Also, one thing I will say about your turnaround is you were left Cal Raleigh. This was not a shrewd pickup by you. You were given Cal Raleigh for $1. So.
He's in the luck column. He's also $1 Cal Raleigh. I don't know if that's going up next year, but he's $1 Cal Raleigh for now.
Yeah, eventually it'll go up. I don't know if it's next year or not, but yeah, we want to keep in the league. It's not corruption. I hope you hear what I had to say and hear what the commenters what I'm hoping they will say too. But thank you for giving me one kind of send off here. Enjoy doing the show for the next couple of months. Without me, I'll be listening.
And I will smell you later. Welcome back in, everyone. We got rid of Worm, and we can continue on with the show now. It's now down to a 2-person show. We're not going to be stuck dealing with all of Worm's lies and corruption anymore. And for regular listeners of the show, For this first video, we typically call it rounding the bases. So we have a number of topics, usually 4, hence the bases. And we kind of go around and talk about it. Sometimes the news, notes, and injuries, or some other segments we want to get to. We just wasted the first segment on Worm and talking about his corrupt league. And so now we'll continue with the remaining segments. And so, Kelly, does that sound good to you? Maybe Worm, now that he's not here, you can actually talk a little bit more.
Oh, I mean, I didn't know if I was just in here for a little bit and then you were just going to take over on your own. But I think, yeah, that was a really great, lively first base discussion. And I hope the two of you feel better. And now maybe you can stop messaging me about it. And I look forward to talking baseball with you now. So,
well, it'll be fun. It'll be fun to see what the commenters think. As I said, the people on Twitter, 85% agree with me that it's actually absolutely absurd. And it'll also be fun because the commenters all season long have suspected that Worm and I just can't stand each other. And lo and behold, it turns out they're right. And all right, so the next segment I wanted to get into is one of the favorite ones I like to talk about. I just call it, Are These Players Broken? And there's a few players we can talk about here. I threw in a couple, and I think you threw in 1 or 2 too, where they showed a lot of promise earlier in the season, and now maybe not so much. And so the first player I wanted to talk about was Mackenzie Gore. And so I could just toss it right back to you, but I have a few thoughts too. But what are your thoughts on the current state of Mackenzie Gore, given his recent implosion, I would call it?
yeah, I wish that he'd imploded a little bit. So he's been terrible since the All-Star break. I don't know what happened over that time, but I wish he'd imploded quickly and then had 2 really good starts so I could have flipped him in the league that I have him in. But instead, he has been he's been more than terrible. I mean, on Tuesday against the Athletics of all teams, 3 innings pitched, 8 runs, 8 earned. He had a whip in that game of 433. Yeah, I mean, I hate to give.
I know that because I bet the under.
Then that's and that is the worst part. Because at least I can deal with some terrible other things if you're just gonna strike people up. But yeah, no, he's been terrible. I hate giving Welsh. I hate giving Joe or Welsh credit on anything. But Welsh did suggest trading him in our last buy low sell high. And I thought he was crazy and was like, nah, I'm gonna hold on to him. And yeah, I would. In one of my leagues in which I'm most competitive right now, I don't know what to do with him. So he seems broken.
Yeah, so I wanted to jump in on one of the you mentioned the word trade, which is something that jumped out to me because I think it was a couple weeks ago on the cycle we were talking about trade deadline candidates and where different players could go and whether or not that would impact their value. And Mackenzie Gore's name surprisingly came up at the trade deadline, and you wouldn't think that a rebuilding team like the Nationals would be interested in moving a young, seemingly very, very good starting pitcher. But his name floated in it, and the Cubs, who you're a fan of, were one of the teams interested. And so what I was wondering now, because this implosion has kind of quickly followed that, did the Nationals know something? Did they kind of see this coming behind the scenes and be like, hey, this really, really good starter's available if anybody wants to overpay for him? And now it's maybe they got caught holding the hot potato. But this is also something Gore has done kind of throughout his career. And I say career, even his young professional career when he was coming up, he's kind of flashed this dominance and then fallen apart, and then flashed dominance and then fallen apart. And so it just seems to be part of the Mackenzie Gore experience. Yep. And yeah, I don't know what to do at this point because his last start was as bad as it gets.
Yeah, well, even the one, so he's lost the only 4 games he started since the All-Star break. But the one game against Minnesota, he pitched 5 innings. And he only gave up 1 earned run and whatever, but he walked 6 people. And it's these are all signs. So yeah, when the Cubs were looking at him, I was like, okay, if we can get the first half back, cool. But I think that my guess is that there's an injury that either he's not disclosing or the Nats were trying to get past. And it may be minor, but it's certainly causing a lot of issues. So yeah, so in this case, I'm very glad. My dad was all over wanting us to get Mackenzie Gore, and I was like, yeah, if we get that first one. But I don't know if he's going to be around for the rest of the year.
Yeah. I was listening to, I think it was a couple days ago, the CBS guys talked about him, and they said that it's possible that, he's had mechanics issues in the past, and that he had to go down to rookie ball at one point to kind of work on his mechanics. It could also be a Jesus Luzardo situation where he's just all of a sudden tipping his pitches and everyone knows it but him.
Right. Yep.
But yeah, it's like I said, it's something that he's done before in his career, and it's kind of unfortunate that it's happening this badly, to the point where it's a very small sample size, but his second half ERA is 13.21. A lot of that is the heavy lifting done by his most recent start, whereas he pitched 3 innings and his ERA for that game was 24. But even in July, 6.75 ERA after kind of cruising through May and June. Yeah. Are you dropping him, or like do you just like bench him at this point?
I think so. I mean, I think, I don't know what his home road splits are, but unless it is a cakewalk, and I'm not sure, other than the Rockies, I'm not really sure who the cakewalk is anymore, because the White Sox seem to be hitting a ton of home runs all of a sudden. So yeah, right now I think I can't start him, but I also can't drop him and have someone else like kind of pick him up for free and then have him turn back into something that I need. So no, I need to see like 1 or 2 above average to good starts if I'm going to put him back in.
Yeah, and the strikeouts have been trending down, like you said too. It's kind of like it's been a pretty rapid implosion, but it's also kind of been like there have been signs that this is coming.
Yes.
The next player I wanted to hit is Lawrence Butler, who I had mixed feelings about coming into the season, and I still very much have mixed feelings about. But like more recently, I have more concerns than mixed feelings about him, because it's gotten pretty bad. And he also, 3 of the A's last 4 games have been against left-handers, and he has not started any of them, which is not good. And the one game he did start against a righty, he batted 7th. And he had previously, most of the time, not exclusively, but most of the time been hitting at the top of the lineup. And so even as recently as July 27th against a lefty, he batted 2nd. And so the fact that he's just like not even in the lineup against lefties right now is concerning. And the stats are concerning too. The batting average is down to 232, expected batting average of 232. Still has 15 home runs and 17 stolen bases, but also that comes with a 28.8% strikeout rate. And if we look at some of his splits, he batted, so the first 2 months of the season, his batting average was around 260. So 254 in March and April, 262 in May. Then in June, it dropped to 234. July, 174. And then August, obviously extremely small sample size, only 4 games, 154. And so currently his first half batting average 251, second half batting average 117. Obviously, it's 2025. We know the batting average is not everything. But those are pretty concerning trends. So do you have any more or any other thoughts on Lawrence Butler and his recent struggles other than the very surface level stats I just provided, as Welsh would call them?
Yeah, I mean, I think like, as I'm looking at it too, just he's had 15 more at bats this year than all of last year, and like all of his numbers are down like significantly. He's been caught stealing 5 times. He wasn't caught at all last year when he stole 18. So in this case, if it's a shallower league, like I have no trouble dropping him, because honestly, like it's an outfielders, you can find this production kind of anywhere, and just kind of grab the hot bat and go. But if I wish that I had let him go in one of the leagues that I was in, that I got knocked out of our just ridiculously early playoffs, mostly because he just did nothing. Like, and I was, and I was just left with this terrible batting average, and he homered he had 2 homers in that one game, and like, yay, but who was even starting him by that point? So I actually see him, like, as you go toward a playoff push, he's a drop for me. I wouldn't worry about it.
It's funny you say that, because I'm in a shallower league. It's only 10 teams, but it's pretty deep lineups, and it's also it's deep keeper, and so you don't really want to cut potentially really good young players loose, because we keep 10 players. It's borderline dynasty. But I considered cutting him today. It's daily lineups, and we're going to talk about a player in the next segment when we talk about our waivers and streamers, who I picked up in that league, and Lawrence Butler was the player I considered dropping. I ended up realizing that I had a player who was recently placed on the IL, so I was able to use the IL spot. But if I didn't have that IL spot, I was looking long and hard at cutting Lawrence Butler. And even if you look at his StatCast data, last year, we like to say a lot of red, like bat speed, sweet spot, hard hit, barrel percentage, average exit velocity, expected slugging, expected batting average, expected WOBA, all well above average. So like 83rd percentile, mostly like right around that 80 mark. There's a couple 62s in there. If you look at 2025, there's a lot of blue. And, expected WOBA, 17th percentile. Expected batting average, 14th. Expected slugging, 27th. Average exit velocity is still fine. Barrel hit hard, or hard hit, and sweet spot rate are all right around league average. So not terrible, but not as good as he was doing last year. Bat speed still good. Squared up is way down. And then whiff and K percentage, like he's near the bottom of the league. And so he's still a young hitter. It could just be one of those chess matches of where, the league has now adjusted to him and he needs to adjust back. But it's not looking great right now. And a team like the Athletics, who are not, they have like a decent lineup, but they're not incredibly deep. The fact that they're just willing to sit him down is pretty concerning.
Yeah, for sure.
On to our next player, James Wood. I think you added him to the sheet. So why don't you tell me about James Wood and his struggles? Who's James Wood?
Who is James Wood? I wonder if he's questioned his existential being the last couple of weeks. Well, also in our Insiders League, so my outfield had Butler and Wood in it. So in case you're wondering why I got knocked out, that's where we start. But let me say, you're not dropping James Wood. I do not care what the league, unless it is a 5-team league, like just hang on to him. I'm not necessarily worried about his underlying anything at this particular point. I am worried about what he's going to do for you in the playoffs. Because fair. I don't, sometimes when they come out and they start to struggle and it's hard when you're that young, sometimes to like turn that around. And, he's played in a ton more games than last year, but his strikeouts are up. And the other problem I have is his BABIP is 328, which, that's not, we only have like 79 games last year to compare it to. And it was even higher then, but like for right now, he's another one that it's like, I kind of am going to sit him a little bit more if I can, if I have the room, and just kind of wait to see if he heats back up. Cause right now it is ugly. So
yeah, the only thing is that in points leagues, he does walk a lot. So he's not completely burying you there, but he is striking out a lot, which is burying you.
He hasn't homered since July 9th.
Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah. We've talked about his profile a lot on the show, because especially the power profile, because there's a lot to love about it in the sense that he sprays his power everywhere, that's what you want. You don't want like just a pull guy. He does go opposite field probably a little bit more than you would want. As someone like, especially with the new age kind of like pull and lift is what you want to hear with these young power hitters. He just kind of sprays it all over the field, which overall I'm fine with. That's years ago when you were teaching young hitters how to hit, it was all about, using the entire field and, being able to go the other way with power. That's one of the things that makes Aaron Judge so phenomenal, is that he's able to just control the strike zone and just flip home runs to right field, especially in that teeny tiny ballpark. The James Wood StatCast data is also very, very good. There's a lot of dark red. Now, a lot of that, the heavy lifting there is probably done by earlier in the season when he was so hot. It's not necessarily updated to what has happened more recently. But yeah, I agree. Lawrence Butler is a borderline drop. James Wood, you should not be dropping under any circumstances. Even the Nationals are not sitting him down. He's still playing every day, even against lefties, still batting second. He's just like the heart of that lineup. They don't have anything to play for, and they're just going to let him work through this, as they should. He's been 8 for 61 since the All-Star break. 8 for 61 ain't gonna cut it. So yeah, no, you don't cut him. You hang on. If he gets on a hot streak, you put him in. Otherwise, you just kind of, if it's like a 5 outfielder league, like you play him and sort of just hope for things to happen. Yeah, the July 9th home run thing is something I didn't know. That's interesting. And he only has 2 home runs. He has 24 home runs on the season, but only 2 since July. So he must have hit 1 before July 9th.
Yep.
Whereas in April, May, and June, 9, 7, 6. And so a lot of that power. the first half of the season. But I do think he's the kind of player who can and will turn this around, but it might just be a situation where you play matchups and sit him down for a week. And if you're anything like me, as soon as you sit him, he'll be fixed. Right. And so that's exactly what you need to do. I also, in that we were in dueling Fantasy Pros leagues. We have like multiple leagues where that like run simultaneously, and then we like meet in the playoffs. I also had James Wood and was eliminated from the playoffs, so maybe that's why. The last player, the last player I wanted to hit in Are These Players Broken is Jack Flaherty, and he hasn't had maybe the same level of struggles as these other three, but he is kind of an enigma right now, and I wanted to talk about him just because he's been so interesting, and he recently had a blow up start, but also it's like he hasn't been consistently bad for like a long enough stretch to kind of write him off. And then I was also looking at, I'll pull it up here. I was looking at his stat, I already had it up. I was looking at his StatCast page just to kind of see what's been happening. Is there any kind of pitch mix change? And, you know, is one of his pitches getting hit harder? Is velocity down? Anything like that? And I didn't see anything. Looking at, you know, kind of like this year to last year, the four-seamer velocity, like the velocity of all his pitches are about the same. The only real pitch mix change is he's throwing his knuckle curve more and his slider a little bit less, but not like egregious numbers. It was like 26, 23%, and now it's like flipped 29, 22%. So noticeable difference, but not like egregious. And even so, if you look at the batting average against all of his pitches, last year four-seamer 245 batting average against, this year 252. Last year's knuckle curve 164, this year 176. Last year's slider 222, this year 259. So there's a slight jump there, but he is using the slider less. And it doesn't feel like such an egregious jump that you would like notice some of these things. So I know I added Jack Flaherty to the sheet pretty late. You might not have had much time to dive in, but do you have any thoughts on the Jack Flaherty experience?
Well, once you added him, I just kind of did a cursory glance of like his Fangraphs page just to see where we were at, and like the only thing that pops out is like his home away splits are significant with regard to ERA. Batters are batting 210 against him at home, but 263 on the road. So I'm not sure if that's necessarily predictive of anything, but maybe, you know, it's the Luis Severino, the reverse Luis Severino treatment, where like if he's home, start pretty much with confidence. If he's away, then you might play a little bit more matchup. But no, I looked at him for the next segment with the two starters, and it was kind of that, well, I don't know, it could be great, or are we going to get one of the 5 runs? I mean, this was against Minnesota right after they dumped everybody, like their whole team. Yeah. And I'm like, so you're up against basically a AAA squad, and he just got shelled. So yeah, he's a mystery. I don't know if he's broken, but he's certainly like injured in our metaphor. I don't think he's injured in person.
Yeah, and there's still 147 strikeouts and 120 innings. His ERA is up to 4.56, but all the expected numbers are 410, 368, 358, 399. WHIP is a little high at 128, but also he's done that in the past. That's kind of been a thing. But the K rate is like about the same. Swing strike rate is like still up over his career, or right around his career average. Hard hit numbers are up a little bit, but like there's no like how in our previous segment I found a smoking gun when I found Worms commissioner was been conspiring against me since March. There's no smoking gun in the Jack Flaherty profile that I see, unless there's something that I'm missing. So, and I do think they like going to Detroit has kind of like revitalized his career, and so I'm fairly confident they're going to kind of get him turned around. And like I said before, and then we can move on. It hasn't been like a prolonged struggle. Like he's recently coming off a start against the Twins, like you mentioned, where he went 4 2/3 innings and gave up 6 runs, 5 of them earned. But before that, he was coming off of 2 quality starts where he had only given up 1 run over 12 innings. Before that, 3 innings, 3 earned runs, and then a few mixed bags, a couple quality starts. Then you go all the way back to June, 8 runs against the Rays, right after he allowed 7 runs against the Reds. And so he's gone through these periods where he's gone out of whack. Given how some of the other bad starts have gone, they've kind of come in 2 or 3s. So he just had 1. Maybe don't start him this week. So while he works out all the kinks. But okay. next segment. We'll go over to third base. I wanted to do a bullpen check-in. Worm and I did a little bit of this heading into the trade deadline and then coming out of the trade deadline, just because this was one of the wilder trade deadlines that I can remember. Not in the sense that like a ton of big names were moved, but a ton of players were moved, especially a ton of pitchers, especially a ton of relief pitchers, where I don't recall like league wide the bullpens being this wide open, especially like a lot of the situations that were left behind. So you have like the perfect scenarios where, you know, the Phillies went out and acquired an elite closer. So it was like perfect, great team, needed a great closer, perfect match. Some of the other situations like the Yankees, we're still figuring out what's going to happen there because Devin Williams is falling apart. And then a lot of the situations that were left behind, there's like committees, or we don't know who the closer is. Maybe they don't know who the closer is. And so I wanted to go through some of them. We don't have to go through like every scenario, but you on FantasyPros.com, you do help update our closer depth chart. You're doing a great job there, especially because that means I don't have to do it, which I really appreciate. But, you know, you update it every week. And so is there anyone, are there any teams or players that you specifically want to talk about? And then I can kind of also run through the sheet if you prefer that.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say with I could not believe how many relievers were like traded, and I deserve a raise for updating the closer report the day after all of that went down, because I was just like, I don't know, let's all guess, right? But the Yankees, like, kind of, they did a thing that I feel like some teams do, and particularly the Yankees do a lot, where you bring in all these players, but you have no idea how you want to use them. And so then all of a sudden you're just like, okay, now I've got Bednar and I've got Williams, and who's going to get what? And a lot of times reliever, you know, they can be a little fickle. They can be a little fickle. So if they don't know what their role is, then all of a sudden it gets a little hairy for them, and they're professionals and they adjust. But I mean, how many times have you seen someone who's just a lockdown eighth inning guy who cannot close to save his life? Like, it's just it's the leverage.
And the opposite.
Situation.
How many times have you seen a closer come in a game early and it's like, this is not the ninth inning. What are we doing here?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's so I feel like between them and kind of, and the Padres to some extent, I mean, Mason Miller blew his first save, but then got the second one. You're just, it's going to take a minute, I think, for them to sort it out. But the Yankees are just definitely they're just a bigger mess because they have too many people, and you have to trust that, you know, their manager's going to know what he's doing, and that's a hard ask sometimes.
Especially for that manager. So some of these other situations I'll run through real quick, because I just as preparing for this segment, I was just looking at our closer depth chart and just trying to piece together what's going on with some of these situations, because I would imagine in a lot of your leagues, if you need saves, you were impacted by the trade deadline in some way, and you're probably looking for a streamer closer or potentially a closer for the rest of the season. And so I'll just run through some of them. So the Orioles situation, it looks like Keegan Aiken is the closer, maybe, but he got a save on Saturday, August 2nd. No one has had a save for the Orioles since then, so we don't know if anything has changed, but like it looks like he's the closer, maybe, question mark. The White Sox appear to be in a full-blown committee. I don't know. No one there has had a save since Saturday, and the person who got the save on Saturday was Jordan Leisure, but Steven Wilson got the save before that, and so it sure looks like they're in a full-blown committee, and also like not really a team you want to chase for saves anyway. The Athletics famously traded away Mason Miller for one of the top prospects in baseball. Their top prospect they received, it was not a closer, and so they have a closer opening because Mason Miller was their closer. It looks like it's maybe Sean Newcomb. For now, like, I don't know. Yeah. Who I think was he in the Red Sox earlier this year? I think he was like a starter for the Red Sox like earlier this season.
He might have been.
Let me look that up.
I don't know. He's
kind of been all over the place. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't mind Topa in Minnesota. I like his numbers. He was with the Cubs for a while, I think, and I can see him picking up some saves because apparently they've decided not to suck entirely. But yeah, no, I don't know about Newcomb, but I'm not sure if I would be sold on him.
Yeah, I assumed that in Minnesota it was going to be Cole Sands, but apparently not. Apparently it seems like it's going to be
Topa
Topa.
got the save on on Tuesday. So
Yeah. And I think Cole Sands, did he pitch in that game too? He did.
yeah.
But not in the ninth. The Rangers, I assumed it was going to continue to be Robert Garcia, but now it looks like they might be moving more to a committee with Phil Maton. The Marlins, I just wrote down whatever. Pretty similar to the White Sox. It's like a committee, but also like even if if they had a lockdown closer, it would be worth rostering because even though it's a bad team, you could still probably get a handful of saves. I'm not chasing a committee on the Marlins and trying to get 2 saves here and there.
Yeah.
And then other teams that also look like they have committees, Cardinals, Diamondbacks, and then also the Dodgers is probably the most fascinating one. That it sure looks like the Dodgers are a committee, but also like I don't know what's going on there. I actually the most recent not save opportunity, but the most recent pitcher to get a save for the Dodgers is Ben Kasparias, who I actually still roster on a points league, like a weekly points league. I picked him up a long time ago as a sparp, as someone to just put in my reliever spot when he was like starting. And I just like haven't needed that roster spot. I haven't dropped him, and I might have the Dodgers closer now. What's going on? But I think Vesia got the last opportunity, but also like didn't convert it. He blew the save and lost. And so it could be Alex Vesia, Ben Kasparias, Blake Trinan, Brock Stewart. They also still have Alexis Diaz. It doesn't seem like he's ready to take that role, but and then they have like a million pitchers on the IL. We thought coming into the league or into the season they could not possibly have any more pitchers or have they're more than enough, but they have like 7 relievers on the IL, and I think 5 of them have saves this year.
Yep.
But yeah. Any additional thoughts on those?
No, just the Dodgers are kind of in a similar they're kind of in a similar position, but like backwards. So like the Yankees have all these people who can close, and the Dodgers have all these people they're like, we're gonna see if you can close. So yeah, I don't know. Those are messy for sure.
Yeah, and even the Dodgers, interesting. Only 1 converted save over the last week, which is interesting.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to our final segment before we wrap up this first video of the cycle. Real or not real, which I really enjoy. And so just to kind of give you the way I like to do this game, I don't like to do it binary of, we look at it, mostly it's looking at a player who's breaking out or has had a sustained run of success and trying to determine, is this breakout real or not real? I don't like to have it so black and white. So I like to think of it as more of like one of those surveys you get where it's like strongly agree, neither agree nor disagree, strongly disagree. So we have a scale for real or not real. And so does that work for you?
Yep, let's do it.
All right. First up is just coming off flirting with a no-hitter, Gavin Williams, who has been on a bit of a heater. I can give a little bit more context, but I'll toss it to you first. Real or not real, Gavin Williams?
Oh, he is that is a question. I saw him on here and I was like, I would say
he was one of the first names I wrote down this week. I was like, all right, let's talk about this.
I'm gonna go with and I do not want to. I'm not gonna do this for all of them, I swear. But I live in the neutral zone here. His ERA is 3.17. His xERA is 4.07. His FIP is 4.44, but his xFIP is 4.2. I mean, you're hanging out in that area, and also he is walking more people this year than last year by a pretty wide amount, and he's striking out exactly the same number of people. And so those things to me, coupled with the idea that he can just blow up, he can single-handedly kill your whip. And I know that because I have rostered him in deeper leagues all season. And it's like, well, yeah, these are good. But so I feel like he's very matchup dependent. And not that I would have started him against the Mets, but I did start him against the Athletics a couple weeks ago, and he was fantastic. So that's... Yeah, he's matchup dependent. I'm not going agree or disagree because I think he's the pitcher he is, but his numbers are weird.
Yeah, I lean. I'm right there with you. I lean slightly disagree. Although I do look at I'm a sucker for pitch mix. I love looking at a guy and seeing like, ooh, we got a new pitch here. Let's see what's happening. He has added a sweeper, and now for context, it looks like he threw a slider last year and he throws a sweeper this year. So it really is just a slight change in his slider and a change in designation. It's not like he completely added a sweeper, but I will say last year he threw his slider 11% of the time, and he's throwing his sweeper over 20% of the time. So he has changed the pitch, and he's throwing it more often, and opponents are only batting 175 against it. So that perks my ears up a little bit, and I get excited about that. However, I'm seeing a lot of the same things you're seeing, and he has been on a pretty sustained long run after a rough start to the season. So ERA in April over 5, but since then, May 3.28, June 2.27, July 3.03, and then through 14 and 2/3 innings in August, 0.61, so that he has a 1.3 ERA in the second half. So I don't know. I don't know what to make of this. I feel like I've been looking at his pitching props like every 5 days, and a lot of times just stay in the way. For earlier in the season, I was kind of fading them, and then I was getting burned, and now I'm just like, you know what? I'm not messing around with this guy's numbers. And that's kind of how I feel in fantasy too. There are some things to be excited about. The underlying numbers are saying you should be worried about this, and I'd be worried about this. And so, yeah.
His if you're gonna bet him, go with his walks and go over. Strikeouts are just, he can strike out 11 and he can strike out 2. I mean, he's a weird profile. And so, I say neutral is the way to roll with him.
Yeah, I will say he's a former first-round pick, so there is some prospect pedigree there. He's dealt with some injuries in the past, and so he's only 26 years old, and so there could be some of this, like he's still on the younger end of a starting pitcher's career. Only threw 76 innings last year, 82 innings the year before, at least in the majors. And so I don't know. It could just be he's figuring it out and becoming a big league pitcher, but also for a pitcher who is currently striking out less than a batter per inning, although the actual K percentage, 23.4%, is that's fine. Like you said, for that whip and for that kind of unpredictable nature of the Gavin Williams experience, I'm probably if this was a month ago, I would say he's a sell high, but we're probably beyond the trade deadline in most leagues, and so it's kind of hard to trade him. If you can, I would, but I would imagine that by heading into the second week of August, your trade deadline is probably passed. Although I'm in at least one league where it hasn't. All right, next name you added, Cade Horton. So I'll toss it immediately to you for Cade Horton. Real or not real?
Well, see, as a Cubs fan, I'm really wondering because he has had a really nice run here in the last little bit. I, of course, did not pull up his game log. But, I am concerned about a lot of other things, one of which is just, he was striking out, double-digit players in the minors, it was 27%, 30%, whatever, and he is at 18% in the majors, and that concerns me significantly. But he has won well below average, and he has won his last 3 games, and against your Red Sox, he went 6 2/3, gave up 2 hits and no runs. So it's kind of the how long or how do we feel about a young guy who doesn't seem to be striking out a lot of people, but he has the background that he used to or that he did in the minors. So is that going to show up? Is he protecting his arm to not, have to have Tommy John quickly? I just don't know. That's where I'm at, which is why I added him, because I want you to tell me.
Yeah, so I roster him in that league I was just mentioning before, where it's 10 teams but pretty deep rosters. And I've been okay with the experience. I like a Cade Horton in that league. It's kind of easier to be okay with him because I have probably 14 pitchers, and so he's just one of my guys. So as long as he's not actively destroying me, I'm happy. He's another one, 3.18 ERA. And then the FIP and everything else, 3.91, XFIP 4.41, Sierra 4.46, xERA 4.27. And then looking at his StatCast, which is difficult to do, his fastball that's interesting. He throws his fastball 50% of the time, and it's got a decent velocity, 95.7. But opponents are batting .313 against it, which is kind of interesting. That the pitch you throw more often than any other has a very good batting average against. But all of his other pitches, sweeper 203 against, changeup he only throws it 13% of the time, 108, curveball 11.3% of the time, 212. So maybe all of those pitches just really play well off his fastball, and he's just like showing his fastball as much as he can to set up those other pitches. But that is interesting. His put away percentage is 14.3% on his fastball, which is lower than any of his other 3 pitches. So maybe just stop throwing your fastball as much and see if you can improve that mix.
Yep.
But yeah, the strikeouts are concerning. You know, that's the one part of the experience I've not been enjoying. I think he's at 18% K rate, which per 9 innings is 6.69, which is bad. Especially for someone like you said who struck out a ton of batters in the minors. I didn't realize it was just that low. I hadn't been looking like closely enough at the K rate, and the swinging strike rate is also like lower than it's ever been. That's interesting. That's an interesting name. Thanks for putting him in there. Especially when we don't know. Did you give an answer? Agree or not disagree, or did you just toss it to me?
I just kind of tossed it to you. I mean, I'm inclined to agree because I'm a Cubs fan. Not strongly agree, just agree. Where I feel like they will eventually, that he can figure out the right pitch mix to up that K rate, just because again of what it looked like in the minors. So it's like, you know, maybe his fastball played better there, and big league hitters are obviously gonna tee off on it if they can. So as he gets used to it, maybe he'll come up with that. So I'm going to agree that he's the real thing, but I'm also a homer, so who knows?
I tend to agree as well. I would have definitely said agree leading into this conversation. Now I've gone a little bit back closer to neither agree or disagree, just because I just saw how bad that K rate is. But again, he's another pitcher, first round pedigree. Only a few years into his major league career, had a ton of success in the minor leagues. And so I'm inclined to believe that he's the real deal, and we're seeing his development in real time. But what about Andrew Vaughn?
I just threw Andrew Vaughn on here because
he's been hot.
Well, yeah, sort of. And also that, I mean, I rostered him over and over and over again when he was with the White Sox, because I like his numbers to me were they should be better, right? And so I guess my question is just, you know, we talked earlier in the season when I was a guest here, and about how freeing it must be to escape the White Sox, and what it, you know, having to play there every day, and the dregs of just being like everything is awful all of the time. So, like, is it real that he's gone to the Brewers and just kind of like lit it up? And now obviously he's on a pace he probably can't keep up, but this is way more the guy that I thought I was drafting, you know, a couple years ago.
Yeah, let me pull up his number. Wow, his numbers since going to the Brewers. So 22 games. Batting .377 with 4 home runs. After, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just agreeing. I'm like, yeah, the numbers are absurd. Yeah.
And then in twice as many games, 48 games with the White Sox, batted .189 with a 22.3% K rate. He's dropped that down to 13. He had 8 home runs, so twice as many games, twice as many home runs. But like everything else is just so much worse. But yeah. Yeah, credit to the Brewers. But do you think it's legit and it's going to continue?
What I will say is, like, his walk rate has kind of, you know, it's not great. It sits right at about that 6%, but it's pretty stabilized. So I think I will agree with where he is currently at. Not that he's going to keep this up forever and always, but like, I think the change is going to help him be, like I said, much closer to who everyone kind of thought he was going to be. But so I will agree for the rest of 2025, and then be like, do not overdraft him in 2026. Yeah. So
I will say the batted ball data looks very good, even, you know, for the full season. And so even though some of those numbers with the White Sox are not great, very interesting. I don't know if I can get there. I feel like I want to lean. It's just interesting that we keep picking first round picks because he's a further removed first round pick. He's a pre-COVID first round pick, if you can imagine. But I just feel like you said, he's someone we talk about every year, and it's hard to kind of get there when I've just not enjoyed the Andrew Vaughn experience in the past, and I've just like watched him be overdrafted. I tend to lean somewhat disagree on Andrew Vaughn, even though I am surprised to see how good the batted ball data looks, because it looks very good. Which is the only thing giving me pause. If that was what I was expecting to see when I pulled it up, I would have been like, yeah, I'm out. But that I'm like, all right, I can see you, Andrew Vaughn. Let's close it out with Trevor Rogers, who has been a fascinating one. He was part of a fascinating trade when the Orioles acquired him, which I didn't really understand that trade at the time. Still not sure I do. But at least for now, it looks like maybe they're getting some return out of that trade, because he's been really good for pretty much the entire season, but especially of late. So what about Trevor Rogers? Real or not real?
Yeah, so I mean, I have like just one quick story. Was I drafted him in 2021 when he had his just phenomenal year, right? Like, and I thought that I had my Clayton Kershaw lefty pitcher obsession. Like, I had the next generation of that.
I had him in Dynasty.
And then, yeah, and I remember the next year he came out, and like I was so excited to watch him pitch. And they talked about, like, I think his grandma died or something, and because he'd been away from the team for a while, and it looked like he just wasn't. He was again broken. Like, if we had this, I would have put him under broken players and been like, yeah, I don't know, he's done. So I am inclined to agree that he's back, just because his numbers have kind of bounced back to the range that they were in 2021. So his strikeout rate is much lower, but his walk rate is also significantly lower. So yeah, I mean, it's possible he's just figured out the pitcher that he's going to be, and once they do that, sometimes they really can stay solid for a little while. So I will agree, not strongly, just agree.
I think I'm going to disagree, not strongly, but I think I'm going to somewhat disagree. Is he also a first round pick? He is. Look at us, 4 for 4 first round picks. Yeah, I was in the same boat. I had him in Dynasty. And I was pretty excited because he looked really, really good. And he was also striking out a ton. So back in 2021, his K per 9 is 10.62 and his strikeout rate is 28.5. And you were like, wow, this guy, not only does he look really good, but he's also striking out a ton. And so, like, that's exactly what I want for a 23-year-old starter in my Dynasty League. And then 2022 happened. And then he was hurt. And then we just kind of haven't seen much of it since. And here we are, where he's having this really interesting year. Last year was not good, 4.92 ERA. According to his expected numbers, it looks like a lot of that was earned, and it was kind of all over the place. 97 strikeouts and 124 innings. So the K rate was way down. Only 7 strikeouts per 9 and 17.3% K rate. This year, it's up to 22.8. K rate is still not great at 7.8, but like you said, the whip way down, which is kind of how he's doing all this. But even when you look at his ERA and his expected ERA numbers, they're pretty wildly different. So 1.44 ERA, I think we can all agree that he's not a 1.5 ERA guy. FIP 2.57, I think even that would be a little generous. XFIP 362, now we're getting a little bit closer where I'm thinking. Sierra 3.76, and then xERA 3.25. And so some of his expected numbers think this ERA is coming up 2 runs. A lot of that is because of the strikeouts, because they're they're building in some bad luck. One of the reasons, even though we're so obsessed with strikeouts for fantasy because it counts a lot towards fantasy stats, the other reason analysts really like strikeouts is because it eliminates bad luck. And so one of the not to get all philosophical on fantasy and real life baseball here, but like one of the trends of why baseball has moved away from the Greg Maddoxes, not that he's a bad example because he was amazing, but like those like a Derek Lowe type of pitcher who was just like really good, but like heavy sinker, pitch to contact. Every now and then they would have like a real dud of a start, and it was because of like BABIP, batted balls in play, and just kind of getting unlucky. And that's why a lot of times, you want those true outcome strikeouts because you can't get unlucky on strikeouts unless, you throw a wild pitch. And for Trevor Rogers, right now his BABIP is 212. And so he's not striking out anyone, and he's getting very lucky on batted balls. Now, some of that is earned luck because you're generating weak contact, and I've already talked way too long about this. And he's also not allowing any home runs. His home run to fly ball rate is 3.3%, which is like amazingly good. And so it feels like there's some aggression coming here, just because even if he's really, really good and he's this good, he can continue to be this good, and he's going to get unlucky just because of how like the law of large numbers works. And so I disagree just because I want to see more strikeouts. But I have been a fan of his for a long time, and so I'm hoping he can turn it around. Although he does pitch for the Orioles now, and so I don't want Worm to be happy. So maybe I don't want him to be good. Unless they trade him.
I'll just also... Oh, sorry. I will just also add that I think that, I'll take an expected ERA of 3.25 all day in fantasy. Like, I'm like, that doesn't scare me. Yeah, it's going to have to, like, come up a little bit. But I'm still like, if that's where we're going to sit, that's fine with me, given at this point in the season and that everyone picked him up off waivers. So,
yeah. The only problem is that if he finishes with a 3.25 ERA, it means the rest of the way his ERA was like 5. Because that's how it's
that's what I said. Was that like he has to? It'll correct, but he also doesn't have enough innings that like it has to be significant. I think to get there. Like if he had a 1 point whatever, and he was supposed to end up with that over a course of, I'm like, well then it's going to get hit quickly. But yeah, so I'm fine with him for the rest of the season for sure.
All right, let's wrap it up there. For Kelly Kirby, I'm Mike Maher, and make sure you check out the next video for the cycle, which is going to be focused on waivers and streamers, waivers and starting pitchers. That's going to be kind of the format of the show going forward the rest of the year, because we don't really have trades to talk about anymore. Before it was 3 videos with, talk about trades in the middle. Now it's going to be more of rounding the bases and different topics like this, where we break down, more the macro level topics and news. And then the second video is going to be waivers and talk about pitchers to stream for next week. So make sure to check out that. Once again, for Kelly Kirby, I am Mike Maher. This has been The Cycle, and thank you for stopping by.